Welcome again to another episode of Between the Two Dots, where we interview exceptional individuals and try to learn and discover how they are living an intentional life. On today's podcast, we are joined by Dr. Larry Stanleigh. Dr. Larry is a public speaker and reflects over 3 decades of dental, clinical, and business ownership experience. Through lectures, workshops, and team trainings, he uses the Discovery Insight systems to bring solutions which can help the dental team form stronger relationships, both with each other and patients, thus becoming more effective in their positions. This is really interesting because just based off of my professional career, I have started to spend a lot more time in the dental vertical. So this was great to talk to Dr. Larry about his experience, his journey, and some of the nuances as it relates to what he has experienced and seen and where he is adding real value to move the needle. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Larry to the podcast.
Larry, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast today. Where are you taking the call from?
I'm here in Calgary.
Yeah. That's great. Perhaps that's a great segue. So has Calgary always been home, or are you an import from elsewhere?
I'm an import from elsewhere. Born and reared in Toronto, second youngest of 13 kids. I ended up moving out here because of the Canadian Forces. When I started university, my father passed away suddenly, and I had to fend for myself. And I got through a first degree, and then I got through a degree, a master's doing research in cystic fibrosis. Finally got into dental school. And I couldn't afford to work and go to school at the same time, so I joined the Canadian Forces. And they said, when I finished, we're sending you to Calgary. And I said, okay. And it's been great. I was told when you move to Calgary, after you're here for a year, you won't want to leave. And I was here for a year, and my actually 3-year contract ended, and I decided I kind of liked it here. I like the can-do attitude, the entrepreneurial spirit that Calgary has, and I've been here 39 years now, so it's home.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah. So growing up in Toronto, did you have any siblings growing up?
Oh, yeah. Like I said, I'm the second youngest of 13. So I've got 6 brothers, 6 sisters. But for me, it was the best of all worlds. I was a guy, so the boys in my family were treated a whole lot better than the girls. And second, as the second youngest, you grow up as a kid. You're surrounded by all these people, so you get lots of attention. And then when you're a teenager and you want space for yourself, well, my older siblings had grown up and moved out, so I had all this space for myself. So it was the best of all worlds for me.
Yeah. My parents, their families tended to be quite large as well. What was kind of the age dispersion between your siblings?
Well, I always joke because my family are not. When I grew up in Toronto, people say, "Are you Catholic?" And no, we're not Catholic. And here in Alberta, they said, "Are you Mormon?" And no, we're not Mormon. The only thing I can come up with is my dad was horny and my mom was fertile. And I think every time they looked at each other, my mom got pregnant because the first 5 were born almost exactly 12 months apart. June, and then July, and then June again. So it's crazy. 6, the first 6 were almost done in 6 in 8 years. I mean, it's crazy when you think about it. I'm a parent of 2, and I think, whoa, that's a lot of work. And how my parents did it, I have admiration now for them as an adult, as a parent myself, but it was crazy.
Yeah. So what was the living situation like? I imagine there was a lot of like sharing rooms and that sort of stuff, and then inevitably some of the older siblings would move out and et cetera and so forth, right?
Right. So growing up in my bedroom, we had 2 bunk beds. There were 4 of us in the room, 3 older brothers and myself. And again, as a kid, I loved it. It was just great being surrounded by family all of the time. So that was kind of neat. And as they grew up and moved out, that room, which housed four of us, is my room, and was mine for quite a few years. So it was pretty good. It was a 5-bedroom house in central Toronto on the Lawrence and Avenue Road area, for those who know it. And it had a 110-foot lot. And so we had this huge, long backyard, and it was great.
Yeah. So, you obviously went on to take on quite a bit of education, but what kind of student were you growing up? Were you a good student? Was it hard for you to concentrate? What was that like?
I I'm pretty lucky. School came to me fairly easily, and my marks were good, and I was a good student. I had um, not great discipline, but enough discipline to do the work required to do well. My family, my mother's oldest brother was Percy Faith, who is one of the most prolific recording artists in North American history. He has over 50 albums to his name, and he played the piano, but he was also a composer arranger, and he was a very talented man. And so there's a lot of musical talent in my family. And I took piano. I took it up as a kid. Most of my siblings did, I got eventually in high school. I got my grade 10 in the Royal Conservatory first class honors. I played clarinet, saxophone in a jazz band, and so music was a big part of my life growing up. But to do well, you got to practice, and so that requires discipline. So I had enough of it. I mean, I'm a pretty distracted fellow, but I had enough of it that if I applied, I could do well, and in my case, I did. I'm the only member of my family, of all of us, in healthcare.
Yeah. And then what brought you to that path growing up?
As a kid, I said I want to be a doctor. I was just one of those kids who said I want to be a doctor, and it never changed. When I got into university, I applied to medical school, but when my dad died starting university, that was hard, and my marks were good, but not good enough. And so I stayed in school. In my final year of my Bachelor of Science, I excelled. I was on the dean's list. I did really well. But they make the decision based on your first and second and maybe your third year results, even though you're in fourth year and you're doing well. And so I still didn't get in. But I knew that if I got out and started working, I wouldn't be able to get back into the routine of school again. I'd be able to apply as a mature student. So I stayed in, and I did my master's in zoology, but it was really research in cystic fibrosis. And I got a National Foundation of Canada scholarship. And that I thought, okay, now I'm going to apply again, but I'm not going to put all my eggs in one basket. So I not only applied to medical school, but I applied to dentistry, and I applied to teachers college. And after not getting into anything, I got into everything. And now I had to decide. And this is the 80s, and this is a time of the television show St. Elsewhere. And on that show, at the end of the first season, Howie Mandel, the Canadian comic, was an actor in the series, and he played an intern, and one of the other interns, one of his colleagues in the show, had committed suicide. They found that the life as an intern so stressful and so challenging that they ended up taking their own life. And in the very last episode, the interns are all sitting around and saying to themselves, "Do you realize that all we did was eat and sleep and work?" And for me, that was my light bulb moment. I said, I never want a year of my life to go by where all I did was eat and sleep and work. So I chose dentistry, and I haven't looked back. It's been a great profession for me, and I've been a dentist now for 39 years. I'm still working as a dentist. I still love what I do every day, and I'm still making a difference in people's lives.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry to hear about your father, and I imagine that would have been challenging when you first started university. But what did your parents do growing up?
Well, my dad was a salesman. He was an extraordinary salesman. He was in the menswear business, men's and boys wear. He grew up, my grandfather and his brother were in the shoe business in Toronto. And so my dad naturally gravitated towards the clothing industry. And he represented Canadian manufacturers of men's and boys clothing and he would sell their clothing to the large department store chains. And he was very good at it. And so his busiest time was between 10 in the morning and 2 in the afternoon. So he'd be home to help us all get ready for school and stuff like that. And then he'd go off to work and he'd sell, and he'd take his clients out for lunch, and he gets a commission. And when it's department store change, it's a big commission. They're ordering a lot of clothing for across North America, and he even had an office in the Empire State Building in New York, and would fly down there regularly to meet with the American department store chains. He did very well. And then the way the industry is, they started to get to a point where they decided to cut costs, as companies do, and start to get rid of people. And they decided that they could do all of the selling internally. And they let my dad go. And so he went from having 7 or 8 different clothing lines to having one. And that's not enough to live off of. So he tried to be a businessman, which he was not. He was a salesman. And most people who are most people are tradespeople, decide to go into business for themselves, fail, because business is different from selling or a trade. And it's like Michael Gerber's E-Myth book, which is a great book on that subject. And he tried to become a clothing manufacturer himself, design his own clothing, make it, sell it. And that did not go well. And he failed, and the company went bankrupt. And about a year later, he passed away of a heart attack. And it was a challenging time.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, sales is such a great and unique skill to have as it relates to, actually being good at it.
Yes.
And presenting and communicating.
Yeah.
I imagine some of those characteristics you witnessed and kind of took on and were able to kind of apply them to your career as well.
Absolutely. I mean, it's all about relationships. If you build relationships, quality relationships take away the need for sales. And so that's what it's all about. And my dad was terrible at remembering names, but great at remembering other things about people. And so he'd bring my mom along to the shows, to the big shows, and the buyers would come into his booth, and my mom would lean over and say, "That's so and so." And then as soon as he got the name, he remembered everything else about him. And it was a really neat to see those two work together like that. And but yeah, he mastered the art of relationships, and something I hopefully I've learned well. In fact, I have a speaking career now, and one of the topics that I speak on is the small business topic about success being all about relationships, and it's in business, the success formula is having systems done consistently with the right mindset. But if you do that with a relationship-based focus, you'll build long-term success that is sustainable, because that's the relationships is what's to sustain it. And it's what I learned from my first business coaches in dental practice, and what I now apply in all the other areas of what I get to do every day, not just dentistry, but everything else. So it's kind of cool and it's fun.
Yeah, absolutely. I imagine some of those learnings came later in life, but you went to dental school in Toronto, is
Yes,
that?
the University of Toronto.
Okay, amazing.
Yeah.
And then, as you mentioned, when you finished, you had to come out to Calgary.
Yes.
Was that right after school?
Yep. I graduated and got in the car, and I drove out west, and I started here a week later. The Canadian Forces gave me 1 week to make the move from Toronto to Calgary. And so I took 5 days to drive across the country. And that was an amazing learning experience on its own, getting to see our country from Toronto to Calgary. It took 3 days to get out of Ontario alone.
Yeah. Did you have at that point any bearings as it relates to what Calgary was about? Did you have any contacts here? What was the situation like when you got here?
Well, the summer prior to me moving here, the Canadian Forces provided us with summer jobs. And they placed me at the time. There was a Canadian base at Penhold, just outside of Red Deer, an Air Force base. And they had one dentist on staff working at that base. And so I worked there that summer with them. And so I would come down to Calgary on the weekends just to try and get to know it. And I had contacts with the forces about people here, but I didn't really. When I moved here, I had been to Calgary. I had an idea about the city and knew I liked it. Wanted to explore it, but I didn't know anybody here. So the first little while was challenging. It was lonely. The work as an officer in the Canadian Forces consumes a lot of your time if you want to do well at it, and I wanted to do well at it. So there was always lots to do. But I got involved with a hiking community, and I'm a runner, and so I got involved with the running community. So I got to know people that way, and before long, I'm also a member of the Jewish faith, and so I got to know the Jewish community well, and they had a baseball league here, and I played baseball and got to know people through that. And you get involved and you meet people, and one thing leads to another, and here we are.
Yeah, absolutely. So, what was the extent of your obligation to them? And so, like, how long did you have to stay, and what did that look like?
Well, at the time, it's a great question. At the time, the Canadian Forces were trying to recruit people fairly actively. This is 1980s, is peacetime, and they needed more dentists, and so they used to have a 9 year commitment, in school, out of school, total 9 years, and then they shortened it to be one for one. Every year they paid for school wise. That's what you owed them afterwards. And I joined at the beginning of second year of dental school. And so I had a total 6 year commitment, 3 years in school, 3 years out of school. And that was it. And about 2 years after I had graduated, they changed the rules so that it became a 9 year commitment. And in my last year, just before I was let go, they almost tripled the salary of the dentists in an effort to retain them. So I missed out on that boat. I got a regular captain salary, which was okay, paid the bills, but you didn't save much money from it. It was well below what a dentist would be earning after graduation, but I still have no regrets. It was a great experience.
Yeah, amazing. And then, so after you kind of complete your obligations, where does your story take you from there?
So it was June of 1990, about 4 months before the Gulf War, the first Gulf War. And I got out. I decided I wanted to stay in Calgary, but I took the summer off. They gave me an incentive to get out. At the time my contract ended, they had more dentists in the forces than they needed. The Calgary base alone had 5 dentists, and there was really only capacity for 4. So they were actively trying to ask us to leave and gave us a small financial incentive. And they said, if you get out, we'll give you, I think it was about 10 grand. You can get that now. Or if you want it later, you've got to stay till the 20-year mark. And I could see myself doing one more tour, maybe 4 or 5 years, but not another 14. So I got out and I decided to stay. I had a nice 2-bedroom apartment in the Sunnyside area of Calgary, right along the Bow River on the north side of downtown. And it was a great area to live, and you could walk most places. There was lots in that area. And so I stayed, and I took the summer off and then I started looking for work. And I didn't have the resources to open my own practice, borrowing that much money made me way too nervous. So I decided to work for another dentist as what they call an associate. And I worked in the North Hill Shopping Mall. And so I worked there for about 4 years. In the food court of the North Hill Shopping Mall is where I met my wife, the woman who became my wife. As we met at the food court in the North Hill Shopping Mall. She's an optician working in the mall. I was a dentist working in the mall, and we met at Marvelous Muffins on a break, total fluke, and And that's another whole love story there, but which I like telling. It's actually part of a book I wrote. The People in Your Life Are a Gift. And then after 4 years as an associate, I knew I needed to work for myself because I'm a pretty independent kind of guy. So I enlisted the aid of a practice broker, and he sort of listened to what kind of practice I wanted to buy and what kind of future I was looking at doing. And he had the perfect practice for me, a guy named Roy Rasmussen, who was nearing 70 years of age and had been practicing for 44 years, wanted to sell his practice, and he was looking for the right person. And he'd turned down several other people who were wanting to buy it, and but he and I clicked. And I ended up buying his practice, and he literally walked out on the Friday, and I walked in on the Monday, and that was in 1994. Friday the 13th of June. No, Friday the 13th. That was Friday the 13th of June, 1994 is when I took over, and that was a good Friday the 13th. It was a pretty great practice. I worked it for about 25 years. Got involved in a niche area in dentistry, oral facial pain and jaw dysfunction from trauma. So I started seeing people who were in car accidents and workplace accidents and victims of violence. So I've got this busy general practice, and then I started picking up this consulting work, and I'm pretty good at it, and I'm really enjoying it. But now I'm working 2 full-time jobs and working 70 hours a week, and that's not sustainable. So I said to myself, anyone can do a good general dentistry. So if I sold the general dentistry part of my practice and stayed on, I could work for the person buying my practice, support it, and still do this oral facial pain consulting. Unfortunately, the person who bought my practice, he and I didn't get along. And after 3 years, he asked me to leave. So I did. And took a little bit of time off, and then met Jan Jaffer, who you've interviewed. Jan and I had been friends for a long time. I'm actually good friends with his father as well. And he and I had coffee together and sat down and talked about the philosophy of treatment. And Jan is not all about sales and selling people. He's about making a difference in the world and finding out what people want and finding a way to give it to them. And that's how I practice as well. And so he had a practice in Wildwood where a young colleague had taken over, but she was just coming off a maternity leave from her second child, so she's only working 3 days a week, and this big 3,000 square foot office with 7 operatories needed somebody. So I came on board and brought my team with me, and 1,100 patients followed me there because of the strength of the relationships I'd built with them over the previous 29 years. And I've been there 8.5 years since then. And we took that practice from about 600,000 a year to 3.5 million in an 8-year period. And it's a great place. We've added a 3rd dentist, and we've got 4 hygienists, and it's a big team. It's a busy place, and we're just working hard to take care of each other and to take care of our team and to take care of our patients. And it's a pretty cool place to be.
This episode is brought to you by Bloom Benefits Group. Bloom Benefits is disrupting employee benefits by rethinking the status quo. They provide exceptional customer service while saving you money. Bloom offers group benefits and retirement products, health and wellness accounts, executive benefits, life insurance, and disability and critical illness. Available to companies across Canada, Bloom helps clients save money without interrupting current plans. Check them out at bluebenefits.ca.
Young professionals, families, and entrepreneurs. What makes Zelos Investment Counsel different? Our independence, client focus, and access. Zelos Investment Counsel is independent from banks and brokerages, which ensures clients' best interests are served without corporate conflicts. We are fiduciary portfolio managers with a duty to clients that doesn't exist in the brokerage model. At Zelos Investment Counsel, we exist to care for our clients, and every day we strive to help our clients reach their goals. We provide our clients with access to institutional investment managers and sector specialists through our proprietary investment structure. For more information, book your no obligation meeting today at zelosglobal.com. That's www.zelosglobal.com.
Attention all car owners. Is the winter weather turning your beloved ride into a rusty relic? Fear not, because we've got the solution you've been dreaming of. Crown Rust Protection. Picture this. Your car defying the elements, standing strong against rust like a knight in shining armor. Crown Rust Protection is not just a shield. It's an investment in the longevity and resale value of your vehicle. Don't let rust take the wheel. Book your Crown Rust Protection treatment today and let your car embrace its inner superhero. Call now at 403-291-1951 or book your appointment at www.krown.com. Our skilled technicians are ready to give your car the VIP treatment it deserves. Crown Rust Protection, because your car deserves to age like fine wine, not rusty vinegar.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't realize that there was that connection to Jan and
Yeah.
Shrek. But
Yes.
small world, right?
It is a small world. It really is.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's wonderful. And it's such an interesting world though. It's the world of dentistry, it's really technical professionals that are business owners, right? And so you have to kind of learn all the ins and outs about business. Like you just can't be inevitably you can work for another dentist in the associate capacity, like you said, as an employee. But if you do elevate to kind of leadership and ownership in some cases, you have to know the ins and outs of a lot of things. And business is complex, right? And
yes, it is.
These professionals don't necessarily have business background or had gone to school with it, so it's kind of trial by fire as well, right?
Absolutely. Well, dentistry, medicine, there's so much. The human body is so complex, and technology and science is changing so rapidly to try and teach us all we need to know to be good enough so that we don't harm people doing dentistry. There isn't really enough time to teach us business too. And so we have to learn that on our own. And the best athletes and the best executives in the world all have coaches. And I learned that early in my career, and I started working with a business coach in 1996, and I've been working with various different coaches all these years since then. And I learned early on that dentistry is a small business. And it's a small business, and all small businesses have the same basic principles. You need to learn how to read a basic profit and loss sheet. You need to understand where you're spending your money and where you're earning your money. You need to know about marketing, and you need to understand about HR and hiring people and managing people. You need to understand so many different things that have nothing to do with dentistry and everything to do with small business. And hiring coaches have really helped me stay focused and to learn what I learn. And I also learned that it's when you get a good bank manager, they can really help you out too. They got lots of resources. The major banks in Canada are really well organized. We're very lucky in this country to have such great resources, and when you utilize them, they've really helped me along the way, and so it allows me to be loyal to them because they've given me good advice. And the same, having a great accountant to help steer you, and having a great tax lawyer to help you, and then having financial advisors who can steer you in the right way, like you do at Zelos. These are all important cogs to have a team of people who help look after you and your family and your team and your needs and your business and all that.
Yeah, 100%. And to your point, ultimately, it is a relationship business. All business is a relationship
Absolutely.
business. And growing at scale, it's all about people.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So inevitably, most of your issues in that leadership role becomes people issues as you have, not only your team, but clients and all the other stakeholders around that, right?
Yes. Yeah. And being a fertile mind and innate curiosity and a love for science fiction and sports and reading and music and literature. I mean, I was a rock radio DJ for 4 years, and some people would say I have ADHD maybe, and I don't. I'm not real fan of all these labels that younger people want to have placed on themselves, and but I am a scattered person, and my interests are wide and varied, and which is why it's been fun for me to get involved in comedy and in voice acting and in publishing. My brother, one of my brothers, is a writer. He writes movies and TV scripts, screenplays, and one of his screenplays that he wrote called "The United States of North America" was a story, and the premise is a time in the near future when the U.S. does a corporate takeover of Canada. So instead of invading us, they bought us out and created a new country. But the union's not gone well. They send our young people to fight drug wars in Central America, and they took away family farms, create corporate farms manned by prisoners. And we said, hang on, this isn't the union we bargained for. So the screenplay that he wrote is about a Canadian rebel group trying to take the country back. And I loved the story. It was written in 1988. And years go by, it got optioned 3 times. American producers said, it's too Canadian, we can't sell it. And the Canadian producer said, it's too many locations, we can't afford to film it. And so the options kept reverting back to my brother, and it sat on the shelf. And then around the time of the millennium, around 2000, some graphic novels got made successfully into films, The Watchmen, Sin City, and stuff like that. Now there's a ton of examples of graphic novels, Walking Dead and the others that have really been successful transitions. So I said to my brother, let's convert this screenplay into a graphic novel so we can publish it and get it out there. And so that's when I got involved, and we hired an artist, and it took them 3 years to do 200 pages of original artwork for this graphic novel. But we published it, and now we go to comic expos. And so we go to comic expos across the country to sell these books, and they sold well. Fans said, what happens next? So I wrote a sequel and cleverly titled USNA 2. Now the rebellion is spread across North America. And then his writing partners took another screenplay that they have, which is a ghost story, sort of a younger audience, called Caretakers, and they published that graphic novel. So we're going, it's fun. I get to get dressed up. We were just at the Calgary Expo at the end of April. 120,000 people went through that place in 4 days, and it's great. Every day we get dressed up in costume and sell books and have fun, and it's just something that's so completely different from what I get to do every day, and that's the kind of thing I like to do.
Yeah, that's amazing. It's not so far from, it's not so far fetched than previously, especially with the president of the United States making overtures on Canada. So it's kind of interesting how inevitably sometimes fiction mirrors nonfiction mirrors fiction and vice versa, right? So
absolutely, it's just it is oddly prescient, and it applied back in '88, and it's still applying today, and so the fans really love it, and we're hoping that someone somewhere takes notice and says, yeah, let's make this into a movie or a TV series. And we've got our fingers crossed. And if that ever happens, it'll be one of those 40-year overnight successes. But I too am a writer. I've written one book, the People in Your Life Are a Gift, and I do keynote talks based on that and workshops. And I wrote a second book, which is a children's series about a knight and his trusty swords named Smoked Meat, who fights dragons and sings opera, and that's with an illustrator right now. We're going to shop that out, and I'm writing the Success is All About Relationships. I'm writing that book. I'm about halfway done, and so writing is something I enjoy. I've done nearly 100 blogs for the Academy of General Dentistry, so writing is something that I enjoy doing as well.
Yeah. I have admiration for writers because that's not necessarily a skill that comes naturally to me, but it's all about getting the reps in though, right? Like if you are a writer, you have to be disciplined in writing. I know that there's like an energy executive that I know had a wonderful career in oil and gas, still is involved in the business, but he considers his focus as being a writer. So he writes every single day
Yeah.
as a discipline, right? So
Yeah. Well, the writer Kurt Vonnegut Jr., who has over 50 books to his name, many of them bestsellers, and he said, if you write one page a day, just one page, in 1 year, you've got 350 pages. You've got a book. In 10 years, you've got 10 books. And people say, whoa, look how prolific he is. And all you've done is one page a day. So the key is the consistency, having the system in place and doing it consistently. And you do that, and all of a sudden you've got all these books. And a lot of us all have books in us. And so that's what you just need to do, is to find the discipline to just say, I'm going to take, this time each day, and I'm just going to write that one page. And before you know it, you've got books out there, and it's fun.
yeah, it's interesting because that's something that I've always fancied potentially doing in the future, but I actually thought of doing a book in a graphic novel format, actually, because that's something that I've loved as a kid, and more recently just kind of revisited some of the the current literature out there, and it's some of the writing is like pretty good in those graphic novels where they're able to communicate like very complex like storylines and nuances in terms of politics and influence and other things. So yeah,
it's a great medium. Can you draw?
I used to be able to.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Oh, great. Yeah. So you should find a way to do it. I have we all talk about brands and monikers and stuff, and my brand is my statement is to build smiles and change lives. So everything I do in my life, that's what I want. I want to build smiles and change lives, whether it's dentistry, whether it's speaking, whether it's writing, whether it's comedy, whether it's acting, whether it's the publishing, the comic expos and stuff like that. I want to build smiles and change lives, and you can do it.
Yeah. Well, like being able to speak, get in front of an audience, that is something that is challenging for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And, the statistics are people fear death more than public speaking, right?
Yeah,
so,
which is crazy, but yeah.
Yeah. Fear public speaking more than death. But like, has that always come natural to you, or has that been an evolution?
I'm grateful to say that for me, it's always come naturally. And so I'm very lucky that way. I'm comfortable standing in front of a group of people, whether it's 2 or 2,000. And I've done all in from there and everything in between. And I'm comfortable. But there is a craft to it, and I've taken courses on how to be a better speaker as well, because you can speak, and I'm good at that, but how do you craft how you say what you say and how you deliver it, and away you go. And then when I give a talk, I make sure that I've got it structured and practiced so that when I'm up there, it sounds like it's just I'm just getting up and speaking off the cuff, so to speak. But it's practiced, and a lot of hours go into it. For a 1 hour talk, I usually put in 30 to 50 hours of work. But it's fun, it's great, and the stuff that I like to talk about impacts people. So I rather enjoy it.
Yeah, absolutely. Are you kind of exclusively focused on kind of Keynote longer format, or would you participate in like shorter, like conversational, like fireside style conversations and things of that nature?
Well, great question, and I'm happy to say all of the above. I've done 6-minute presentations, Pekka Kucha, which is a Japanese format called the 20 by 20, where you've got 20 slides, 20 seconds for each slide, hence 66 minutes, 40 seconds on a specific topic. And so I was given the topic of unmasked. And it happened about 3 years after the COVID pandemic, and we were emerging from it and unmasking, taking our masks off. And so I came up with I was asked to do a talk, and I did that, and I've repeated it a couple of times, and it's really about hope for humankind is sort of the way it ends up. But I've done 6-minute talks. I've done at the beginning of February in Winnipeg, I did a 7-hour lecture. So and everything in between. So it's fun. It's different. I enjoy those challenges, but whatever meets the needs of whoever wants to bring me on board to speak, that's what I do.
Yeah. And has it largely been focused on dentistry, or like has it started to kind of veer out more generically on different types of thematics and audiences and that sort of stuff?
Well, again, all of the above. I have 3 main topics that I speak on, and you can see it on my speaking website, drlarryspeaks.ca. And I have a dentistry topic that's meant for the team, not for the dentists, called Every Breath You Take, Sleep Disordered Breathing for the Team. If the team understands what sleep disordered breathing is, and that's sleep apnea and snoring, and there's a one in between called upper airway resistance, what it is, why it's important, why we need to pay attention to it. And dentistry has a very unique role to help relatively simply treat a complex medical problem with an oral device when it's indicated. But the dentist needs to be trained properly to do all this. But if they do, we're changing lives and saving lives. Actually, if we identify it and treat them, we're adding 7 years to a person's life. That's significant. And away we go. So that's one topic. I've got the have you lost that love and feeling? Every success is all about relationships. So that's my business topic. And although it started in dentistry because I'm a small businessman dentist, the small business principles apply across the board. So I've used those principles in a tea house in a chain of tea houses in Taiwan, and in a spa in Singapore, as well as in dentistry. So the principles apply across the board, and so I do that. And then I've got my Keynote workshop, which is The People in Your Life Are a Gift, a series of true stories that have 4 main points, and then a little bit of workshop that comes out of that as well. That's done usually in about 45 minutes to an hour. And so those are the things that I'm doing, again, with the theme of I want to build smiles and change lives.
Yeah, amazing. Well, you don't seem like you're slowing down anytime soon.
Yeah, I'm not.
That's a good thing.
Yeah, it's a good thing. It's crazy. I'm already now 10 years past the age that my father did when he passed away, and every so often I think about that because I still imagine my dad, because I was a teenager when he passed away, of this robust man, businessman, salesman, and older, and now I'm 10 years beyond that point, and I don't think of myself that way, but yeah, here I am.
I'm curious, did your wife remain in optometry, or like what did that how did that story unfold?
So she's an optician. So she helps fit people with eyeglasses and contact lenses. She's very good at what she did. And when we got married, she continued to work as she was. And then when our first child was born, our daughter almost died in birth, but thankfully, thanks to modern medicine and techniques, she survived and she was okay. And I'm all for women wanting to pursue their careers as well. And I'm not old-fashioned that way. And if being an optician was important to my wife, her name's Tina. If it was being an optician was important to Tina, then we would find a way to make sure we supported that. But when we looked into what it would cost for childcare and the way the income earned by opticians was actually going down. We knew that 100% of her income after tax would be going to pay for someone else to look after our daughter.
Yeah.
So she said, being an optician isn't that important to me. I'm going to stay home and be a mom to our daughter. And so that's what she did. And so she has not worked. Our oldest is now 30. She hasn't worked in the field for 30 years. But she's kept up. She's read. She's aware and stuff. But she's hasn't been licensed and is now not going to go back to it as a profession. But she had that choice, and she chose to be a mother to our children instead. And we're grateful for that.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it stands as a stark contrast as it relates to today in Canada. My wife is in the daycare business, and she was previously spent over a decade in early elementary in the public system as a teacher.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's amazing now. So what used to in today's dollars cost, $1,700 or $2,000 a month for a full-time child to be in daycare now costs just over 300 something in terms of tuition. There could be extra fees associated with that, but then now for the first time, some of these families are able to say, hey, this actually makes financial sense, and I could send my child to daycare and be gainfully employed, right? So yeah. So yeah, it's interesting. And you touched on a few other things. Like I've had some knowledge and experience with the sleep apnea as well. Like I've mildly suffered for that myself, and then we had sleep tests for my oldest son because he had some symptoms and stuff. But then through getting some expanders and other things, it seems to have helped. I know that at one point the recommendation was to remove the adenoids and tonsils, and now it seems like there could still be a case for the removal of the tonsils, but the adenoids seem to be okay as well. So yeah, it's just kind of interesting. And then
how old's your son?
He's 8 years old.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So I know that some ortho won't do kind of early childhood intervention, but some clinics, it's the sooner the better, I guess, right? With the palate.
Absolutely. For adults, when they have sleep breathing issues, I say there's sort of three ways we can treat it. We can blow the airway open, which is what CPAP is, or we could pull the airway open. It's not really pulling, but we can do that with an oral appliance, or we make the box bigger, and that could be orthodontics, it could be surgery, stuff like that. That's invasive, expensive, irreversible. So I always try the reversible, non-invasive stuff as a place to start. But with children, we don't want them on CPAP if we can avoid it. We can't put them in an oral appliance because they're growing and changing. So making the box bigger, making the airway bigger is the way we go. And that's orthodontics and working with the ear, nose, and throat specialists. And unfortunately, in Alberta, well, in North America, not just Alberta, there are not enough ear, nose, and throat specialists who work with kids and who are interested in helping resolve the sleep breathing issue. Sleep apnea as a disease has been around forever. There's even Egyptian hieroglyphs that mention about snoring and sleep breathing issues. We've known about it for millennia, but we've only identified it as a disease that affects adversely our health for about the last 50 years. So it's pretty new. And even the precision oral appliances that are now as equally effective up to the low end of severe apnea cases as CPAP, they're only about 7-8 years old. So it's very new field. There's a lot of catching up that needs to do. And so some of the older orthodontists don't believe it. And a lot of the ear, nose, and throat specialists that are older don't buy into any of this. But the research is pretty good and it's pretty clear, and we are making a difference. one person at a time, but it's coming. And
Yeah.
and the research continues to demonstrate not only it being effective, but it's changing people's lives, adding 7 years to your life, reducing the incidence and expression of Alzheimer's and senile dementia, in addition to cardiac arrest and strokes, and it's a big deal.
Yeah. 100%. Um, yeah, I think we've touched on a lot of different areas, and
Yeah.
it's been kind of fascinating to dive in a little bit into different areas and different things that you've been involved in. Um, you know, it's interesting when you have these conversations. It always sometimes, sounds like a highlight reel, but wanted to maybe touch on, has there been a challenge and a difficulty in your life that at the time, perhaps down the line in reflection, resulted in a learning or something positive that has come out of that?
Yeah. A number of things. One is I often tell people that I'm very good at spending money and very bad at saving money. And a man my age should have saved enough to stop working if they wanted to, and I have not. And so when I meet younger people like you and younger, the message is to pay attention to where you're spending your money and find a way to balance that. I mean, I've been doing that now for a few years, and I'm in a good place, and I'll get where I need to be to get there. But yeah, we really got to stop thinking about spending and more about finding the balance between living for today and saving for tomorrow. Because when you're younger, you think, oh, I got another 20 years to work, and so I'll spend it now because I'll be okay. And then before you know it, the years go by, and there you go, and you haven't saved enough. The other thing is to stick to your principles. I sold my practice to a person that I knew the day I was signing the papers to sell it, that this was the wrong person to be buying my practice, and the relationship fell apart, and things happened. And when I bought my practice from Roy Rasmussen, he said, people before you wanted to offer me, and they were offering me how much I was asking for, but I didn't think they were the right fit for my practice. And I didn't learn that lesson until it was too late. And so stick to your principles, have a vision, and stick to that vision, because somehow or other you'll still find a way to make it successful and to get what you want. And then the final thing is, we all know about the golden rule, which is to do unto others as we'd have done unto ourselves. But what if other people don't want what you want for them? So I much prefer the diamond rule. And the diamond rule is to find out what it is that people want, and then find a way to give them what they uniquely desire. Don't make it about you, make it about them. And if you do that, you'll live happier, healthier. You'll have a life of significance. And there's the book The Dash, which is a parallel to your two dots. Then the dash is all about, when on our tombstone we've got a year when we're born, a year, a date when we die, and there's a dash, and that dash represents everything between those two dates, and that's where we want to live a life of significance. And so that's why I was intrigued by your podcasts, the two dots, and the message that you're trying to get out there, because it's the same thing as the dash. And I'm honored that you asked me to engage in a conversation today with you too.
Yeah, no, this is lovely. I think it would be great to continue these types of conversations, whether they are recorded or not. But
Happy to do
really,
so.
really appreciate you coming on. And lastly, I would like to give you the opportunity to talk to our audience as it relates to, drawing attention to how people could get connected, find out more information. The floor is yours. Anything that you want to highlight?
Well, um, it's all about relationships for me, and I love connecting with people. from all walks of life, from no matter where they are or when they are. And LinkedIn is a great way. Larry Stanleigh, Leigh is how the last part of my name is spelled, or DRLARRY speaks.ca. Dr. Larry Speaks is my website, my speaking website. There's lots of information there. You can read some of the blogs that I've written and stuff. So stay connected to me or connect with me. I'd love to hear from any and all of you, and if there's a way that I can serve you, I'd be happy to do so.
Yeah. I appreciate that. Thank you so much, Dr. Larry. Take care, and really appreciate this conversation.
Yeah, thanks, Gil. I'm sorry Hafiz couldn't join us too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you again for joining us for another episode of Between Two Dots by Intention Media. This podcast is co-hosted by myself, Gilbert Bong, and Hafiz Mita. If you enjoyed this podcast, please rate and review wherever you listen.